This is WPDE News Channel 15, your #1 source for local news.
Channel 15, WPDE-TV, Florence.
PD 15 News, the 5:30 edition, the PD area's first local report of news, sports, and weather.
Good afternoon. Here's what's going on at
Channel 15, WPDE-TV, Florence.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Al Clench.
I'm Jan Pate. From the Grand Strand to the Sandhills, here's what's happening tonight.
Channel 15, WPDE-TV, Florence.
Live from the studios of WPDE-TV, it's the new PD People with your hostess, Diane DeVong.
Good morning. Well, while everyone else is in London preparing for the royal wedding, the PD People staff was in Lake City over the weekend preparing for the South Carolina Tobacco Festival.
PD 15 News, the early edition with Al Clench and Jan Pate. News from the Grand Strand to the Sandhills.
Good evening, everyone.
Channel 15, WPDE-TV, Florence, Myrtle Beach. #15 News, the early edition. News from the Grand Strand to the Sandhills.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Al Clench.
And I'm Jan Pate.
15 News, the late edition. News from the Grand Strand to the Sandhills.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Al Clench.
And I'm Linda Mills. On top tonight, the recapture of 2 inmates who escaped from the Florence Detention Center early this morning.
#15 News, the early edition. News from the Grand Strand to the Sandhills.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Randall King. Al Clench is still feeling a little bit under the weather.
I'm Jan Pate.
This is 15 News Morning Edition with Randall King.
Good morning, everyone. 65 degrees our temperature right now with still some cloudy skies in Florence on our way to a high in the mid-70s.
15 News, the early edition with Jan Pate and Al Clench. Weather with Steve Capps. And sports with Rick Henry.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Randall King. Al Clench has the night off.
And I'm UZ Brown, sitting in for Jan Pate, who is not feeling well this evening.
Live from Florence and Myrtle Beach, here's an Action News morning update with Clay Williams and Valerie Calhoun.
Good morning, everyone. This is Clay Williams reporting live from the scene at the Hannah Cove Blade and...
Live from Florence and Myrtle Beach, this is an Action News 15 morning update with Tara Reedus and Steve Addison.
Good morning, everyone. We are looking at dangerously high temperatures today.
Live from Eastern South Carolina's news station, Randy Tinney, Jan Pate, Rick Henry on sports, and Steve Capps with the weather. This is Action News.
Live from Eastern South Carolina's news station, Bob Howick, Sue Abrams, Rick Henry on sports, and Steve Capps with the weather. This is Action News.
Good evening. I'm Sue Abrams.
And I'm Bob Howick.
Live from Eastern South Carolina's news station, Randy Tinney, UZ Brown, Rick Henry on sports, and Steve Capps with the weather. This is Action News.
Troops are called in to keep the peace.
Live from Eastern South Carolina's news station, Bob Howick, Sue Abrams, Rick Henry on sports, and Steve Capps with the weather. This is Action News.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Bob Howick.
And I'm Sue Abrams.
Live from the Eastern Carolina's news source, Sue Abrams, Rick Henry on sports, and Tom Sorrells with the weather outside. This is Action News 15.
Good evening, I'm Sue Abrams.
Action News is everywhere.
From WPDE TV 15. This is Action News, live at noon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Roger Harvey. Thousands of people up and down the North and South Carolina coast are making final preparations for what they fear most.
Action News is everywhere.
Now, from the Eastern Carolina's live news leader, this is WPDE's Action News 15.
Good evening, I'm Lily Shaw.
And I'm Bob Howick. All eyes are focused on Hurricane Hugo at this hour.
Action News is everywhere.
From the Eastern Carolina's live news leader, this is WPDE's Action News 15.
Good evening, I'm Sue Abrams.
And I'm Bob Howick.
Action News is everywhere.
Now, from the Eastern Carolina's live news leader, this is WPDE's Action News 15.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Amanda Lamb in Myrtle Beach.
And I'm Shania Chavis in Florence.
And I'm Bob Howick.
From the TV 15 newsroom, Action News live on the hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Nancy Humphreys.
From the TV 15 newsroom, Action News live on the hour.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Allison Floyd.
Now, from the Eastern Carolina's live news leader, this is WPDE's Action News 15.
You're watching WPDE TV 15.
Good evening, I'm Wayne Fournier.
And I'm Sherry Jones. Thanks for joining us.
You're watching WPDE TV 15.
And now, Steve Hawley, Tiffany Cochran, meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports director Bob Mahalik. This is 15 News live at 6.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hawley.
And I'm Tiffany Cochran. Thanks for...
You're watching WPDE TV 15.
And now, Steve Hawley, Tiffany Cochran, meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports director Bob Mahalik. This is 15 News Nightbeat.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hawley.
And I'm Tiffany Cochran.
You're watching the Carolina's News Channel. And now, News Channel 15 at 6 with Dave Gilbert, Tiffany Cochran, Ed Piotrowski, Terry Gurn, and Allison Floyd.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us.
You're watching the Carolina's News Channel. And now, News Channel 15 at 6 with Dave Gilbert, Allison Floyd, meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and Terry Gurn with sports.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for News Channel 15 at 6. I'm Allison Floyd.
And I'm Dave Gilbert. We begin tonight with gunfire erupting at night.
You're watching the Carolinas News Channel. And now, WPDE News Channel 15 at 6. With Rich Everett, Allison Floyd, meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and Terry Gurn with sports.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
A local hospital is paying taxes for the very first time.
The Carolinas' #1 news channel brings you the area's only prime-time local news with Steve Hawley, meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Terry Gurn. And now, News Channel 15 at 10 on TV21.
Good evening. I'm Steve Hawley.
This is WPDE News Channel 15, Florence, Myrtle Beach. And now, News Channel 15 at 6 with Rich Everett, Allison Floyd, meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and Terry Gurn with sports.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us for your local news. I'm Allison Floyd.
This is WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Rich Everett and Allison Floyd. And now, the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us for your local news at 6.
With Keith Sterling and Allison Floyd. And now, the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Good evening, everyone.
This is WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Rich Everett, Allison Floyd, meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and Dan Helly with sports. And now, the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Welcome back.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Keith Sterling, Allison Floyd, meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Rich Krampanis. And now, the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Welcome back.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15's Nightbeat with Keith Sterling, Allison Floyd, meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Rich Krampanis. And now, the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
WPDE News Channel 15's Nightbeat looks a little different tonight.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, we're having some lighting issues here, folks. Severe weather, as we've been telling you, move through the area. So
Good morning, Carolinas, with Karen Millette. Weather with meteorologist Ted King. And sports with Rich Krampanis on WPDE News Channel 15.
Good morning, Carolinas. It's Thursday morning.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 6. And now, the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd, Keith Sterling, meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Rich Krampanis. And now, the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd, Keith Sterling, weather with meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Rich Krampanis. And now, the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd and Keith Sterling. And now, the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Welcome back to News Channel 15 at 6.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd and Keith Sterling. And now the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Welcome back to News Channel 15 at 6.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd and Jim Heath. And now the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Good evening, everybody.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 11 with Allison Floyd, Keith Sterling, weather with meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Rich Krampanis. And now the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Good Monday evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 11 with Allison Floyd, Jim Heath, weather with meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Rich Krampanis. And now the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
We begin on a tragic note this evening.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 11 with Allison Floyd and Jim Heath. And now the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Welcome back. 2 U.S. soldiers were killed and 9 others injured.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15 at 11 with Allison Floyd and Keith Sterling. And now the Grand Strand and PD's #1 source for local news, WPDE News Channel 15.
Welcome back, everyone.
This is WPDE News Channel 15's News at Noon with Kerry Burns and weather with meteorologist Ted Kane.
Good afternoon, I'm Kerry Burns.
Next at 6, 4 Horry County firefighters on their way to a call face their own crisis. Their engine overturned in a ditch.
Emotions, you run the full gamut of emotions.
In tonight's team coverage, you'll hear from those who responded.
And honestly saved several lives this morning.
And how first responders are dealing with an accident involving their own. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Jim Heath is off tonight.
This is WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd, Jim Heath, weather with meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Rich Krampanis.
Good evening. We begin tonight.
This is WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd, Jim Heath, weather with meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Rich Krampanis.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for joining your local team for the...
This is WPDE News Channel 15 at 10 on UPN with Jim Heath, weather with meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Rich Krampanis.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining your local team for the news at 10 right here on UPN. We begin tonight with a celebration. 25 years ago today, WPDE signed on the air to bring news, weather, sports, and programming to the Florence area.
This is WPDE News Channel 15 at 10 with Jim Heath. Weather with meteorologist Ed Piotrowski. Sports with Rich Krampanis.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. There's no snow, sleet, or rain, but it certainly is cold outside. Next on Nightside, crowded crosswalks and busy streets creating danger in downtown Myrtle Beach.
A Mexican healing herb being sold here for a very different purpose.
And a big night in the low country in Charleston as the new Cooper River Bridge is lit up for the very first time. Hey, everybody. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining your local team for Nightside.
This is WPDE News Channel 15 Nightside with Allison Floyd, Jim Heath, weather with meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and sports with Rich Krampanis. Coming up next on Nightside.
A somber day around the world as the deadly London bombings are remembered.
This is WPDE News Channel 15 Weekend Report with Joel Allen,
weather with meteorologist Jen Gilbert, and sports with Mark Haggard.
Good evening and thanks for joining our local team for the weekend report.
Tonight, live from the studios of WPDE News Channel 15, the Myrtle Beach mayoral runoff debate. The candidates who want to lead Myrtle Beach for the next 4 years. Mark McBride, John Rhodes. Now, live from our WPDE studios, tonight's moderator, Jim Heath.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
This is WPDE News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd and Jim Heath.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
From spilling hot coffee to logging on the web, tonight we take a look at the staggering number of filed lawsuits.
A PD community is coming to grips tonight trying to figure out why a well-known stylist was murdered.
And police in several states on the lookout for 3 pregnant teenage girls after they assaulted someone with a frying pan. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for joining your local team for Nightside.
This is WPDE News Channel 15 Nightside with Allison Floyd and Jim Heath. Coming up next on Nightside.
Could a total ban on spanking?
Next on Good Morning Carolinas.
Jury qualification is taking longer than expected in the murder case against a man already on death row. We'll let you know when opening statements are expected.
This is Good Morning Carolinas on News Channel 15 with Lauren Lowry and First Alert meteorologist Darren Stack.
Great to see you this morning. I'm Lauren Lowry. You are joining us here at 5:30.
This is Good Morning Carolinas on News Channel 15 with Holly Morgan and First Alert meteorologist Darren Stack. Next on News Channel 15 at 6.
A 14-year-old boy who is accused of shooting at a school resource officer could be tried as an adult. We'll take a look at his background.
This is News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd, Jim Heath, First Alert Chief Meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and Sports Director Rich Grandanis. Coming up next.
A deadly start to the new year.
You're watching News Channel 15 at 6.
The Grand Strand tourism industry said thank you today to the area's public safety officers.
Next on News Channel 15 at 10 on the CW.
Manhunt continues. New details.
Next on News Channel 15 at 11. This is News Channel 15 at 11 with Allison Floyd, Jim Heath, First Alert Chief Meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and Sports Director Rich Grandanis. Coming up next.
A big day on Capitol Hill causing contention on both sides of the topic of bringing troops back home.
This is News Channel 15 at 11 with Allison Floyd, Tim McGinnis, First Alert Chief Meteorologist Ed Piotrowski, and Sports Director Rich Grandanis. Coming up next.
President Barack Obama and former Vice President Dick Cheney squared off in Washington today.
You're watching News Channel 15 at 11.
Well, if there...
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Allison Floyd. We are following some breaking news at this hour.
This is a News Channel 15 special report.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for this special report on the Horry County wildfire.
This is a News Channel 15 First Alert weather report.
Good evening. I'm Tim McGinnis. Snow continues to fall at this hour. In fact, it's starting to pile up on our windshields.
This First Alert weather report is sponsored by Santee Cooper. This is a News Channel 15 First Alert weather report.
Good evening, everyone, or morning now, I guess it is.
This is a News Channel 15 Vote 2008 update.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Allison Floyd.
And I'm Jim Heath. We want to begin our local coverage by taking a look at the presidential race here in South Carolina.
This is Carolina This Week. Carolina This Week with Tim McGinnis.
Good morning and thanks for joining us. Of course, a big week in Myrtle Beach last week with...
You're watching Good Morning Carolinas with Jason Glasspool, Crystal Costa, meteorologist Darren Stack, and Amanda Kenseth.
And a very good Monday morning to you. Thanks.
Next on your news at 6.
Election day is just a week away. We'll take a look at what you can expect at the polls.
Education leaders from across the state met in Columbia today to talk about bullying, what they plan to do to prevent it.
And flu shots on the fly, where you can get the vaccine without getting out of your car. The countdown is on to the election. It is just 1 week from today.
You're watching your news on News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd and Tim McGinnis.
Horry County schools are taking a closer look at online security.
Carolina This Week with Tim McGinnis.
Good morning and thanks for joining us for Carolina This Week. The primary in South Carolina is over, so we're back to talking about the 7th Congressional District. Welcome back to Carolina This Week.
You're watching your news on News Channel 15 at 6 with Allison Floyd and Tim McGinnis.
Right now on the news at 10 on CW21.
Power's out for families all over South Carolina, and thousands in our area haven't had it in more than a day. How they're holding up. And with power out, many are flocking to area shelters. We'll tell you what the shelters are doing to keep residents warm. The storms proved deadly for some in South Carolina. Details on a house fire in Marion that claimed the life of one woman. That's just ahead. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Tim McGinnis.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We are coming to you on CarolinaLive.com tonight. Unfortunately, the power outages that affected so many in our area affected us here at WPDE as well.
The 38th annual Conway River Fest. We've got dozens of vendors here. We're going to take you inside some of the stuff you can get.
A crash involving a church bus leaves 17 people hurt in Horry County. We're going to show you what happened and who is back home with family. What a beautiful start to your Saturday morning. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for GMC Weekend.
This is Good Morning Carolinas on ABC 15.
Good Tuesday morning, everyone.
You're watching Good Morning Carolinas on ABC 15 with Crystal Costa and meteorologist Maddie Kirker. You're watching Good Morning Carolinas on ABC 15 with Crystal Costa, Matt Barber, and meteorologist Caitlin Wright.
Good Tuesday morning, everyone.
You're watching Carolina and Company Live, your source for fun, entertainment, and events. With your host, Amanda Kenseth and Cecil Chandler. If it's happening in the area, then it's on Carolina and Company Live.
You're watching Carolina and Company Live. Your source for fun, entertainment, and events. With your hosts, Cecil Chandler and Amanda Sellers. If it's happening in the area, it's on Carolina and Company Live.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to Carolina and Company Live. I'm Cecil Chandler.
That's right. I'm Amanda Sellers. Look at this. I blend into the set. Look.
Man, you blend right into the set. That is amazing.
How about...
You're watching Carolina and Company Live, your source for fun, entertainment, and events.
with your hosts Cecil Chandler and Amanda Sellers. If it's happening in the area, it's on Carolina and Company Live.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to Carolina and Company Live.
You're watching ABC 15 News at 5.
We are working on several big stories for you tonight here at ABC 15. Next week, the country will celebrate America's birthday. This weekend, people may be getting a head start along the Grand Strand. Sky 15 is your eye in the sky. Watching the roads tonight, we want to help you avoid all the backups. But first tonight, a truck and a church bus crashed in the Green Sea area of Horry County, sending more than a dozen people to the hospital.
This is ABC 15 News on CW21 at 10.
This is what it looked like in Garden City just about an hour ago.
This is ABC 15 News at 11.
It makes you aware, again, that there are people that hate you so much that they want to kill you.
A young pilot's plane crashed near his home in Florence County yesterday. Tonight, you'll hear exclusively from the teenager's family and friends as they stand by his side during recovery. And a family in Beaufort is trying to pick up the pieces after a fire took everything from them. We'll show you how you can help them. And a couple disappeared in Barbados after renting a jet ski this week. We'll show you why investigators on the island say they're calling off the search. But first, Horry County officials held a special meeting this evening.
We are following breaking news. Some people involved in a bus crash in Horry County earlier today. They are still in the emergency room tonight.
Working for you. This is Good Morning Carolinas on ABC 15.
Good Monday morning, Carolinas. It is 6 o'clock, the day after a holiday weekend. Kind of hard to get going.
Working for you. This is ABC 15 News at 5.
First at 5, we've got South Carolina's latest coronavirus report.
Working for you. This is ABC 15 News at 5:30.
Well, first at 5:30, South Carolina's efforts to legalize medical marijuana may be coming to a screeching halt tomorrow.
Working for you. This is ABC 15 News at 6.
Right now at 6, is South Carolina one step closer to legalizing medical marijuana? Well,
working for you. This is ABC 15 News at 7.
Other people that have had COVID as bad as you did.
Working for you. This is ABC 15 News at 11.
Don't even know what's going on.
Well, they thought it was over, but some people are still feeling the effects of COVID-19 months after contracting the virus and testing negative. Tonight, find out why some are scared of getting vaccinated. And multiple agencies are working together to stop crime all around our viewing area. But is it working? Well, we asked the men in charge, and you'll hear how they answered that question.
From ABC 15 News, this is breaking news.
Okay, that breaking news is coming out of Robeson County, where police say 2 people were shot following some sort of an argument.
You're watching WPDE News Channel 15.